Trump's constant verbal diarrhea on the topic of Jeffrey Epstein has once again come to bite him on the ass when he has said multiple times over the last few days that Jeffrey Epstein stole Virginia Giuffre from him. Stole, like property, like someone you don't consider to be a person, which would be consistent with the fact that Donald Trump throughout like this entire month-long thing, how many words has he uttered of empathy for the victims? Or acknowledgement of the horrors that were committed? Have there been any? I don't believe there have. And so why wouldn't he think about Virginia just being taken from him and he's the victim? But there is an issue with that because that apparently came as news to her family. Now, of course, she took her life, not that long ago. The entire thing from start to finish is a tragedy. Donald Trump doing what he's doing only makes it even worse. But some of her relatives have done an interview now with The Atlantic. So two of her brothers, her sisters-in-law, gave this interview and they said this: it makes us ask if he was aware of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal actions, especially given his statement 2 years later that his good friend Jeffrey likes women on the younger side. No doubt about it. We in the public are asking for answers. Survivors deserve this. Now, what they're referring to there is that Donald Trump, because his brain is mush and he can't stop lying, hasn't apparently really thought through the timeline of the cover story he's telling here. Again, he doesn't want to admit that he knew what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. So he's like, okay, we've previously said I threw him out for being a creep, but I don't want to get into the whole creep thing. So no, the news story is it was for poaching employees. But the issue is that, as they point out, according to him, that happened years before he was still talking about the young girls and stuff like that. And he remained friends with him for literally years after when, in his telling, he supposedly ended it. And that is potentially revelatory. Okay, now again, I don't think he's thought about this at all. And the joke is probably on us because he could admit that he did all of this, that he was on the island every weekend or whatever. And who exactly would enact justice against him? The Supreme Court has said he's a God king, you should back off. But still, for those of us who care about justice, I think we want to know more, and this is potentially revealing some of that. They say, by the way, the family that they're still reeling from her suicide a few months ago said they're speaking out in part because they're alarmed by Ghislaine Maxwell's recent offer to testify before Congress in exchange for immunity. And they had more to say in that area. If our sister could speak today, she would be most angered by the fact that the government is listening to a known perjurer, a woman who repeatedly lied under oath. That is true, and will continue to do so as long as it benefits her position. The government and the president should never consider giving Ghislaine Maxwell any leniency. Maxwell destroyed many young lives, and she was convicted for only a fraction of the crimes she actually committed. That too, 100% true. It's one of the reasons that people care so much about this story. And I cannot even imagine, like I think about how horrified I am. I can see in people's comments the prospect of Donald Trump setting her free. But if you are part of Virginia's family, I mean, this is beyond a worst case scenario. You probably never considered that this could happen, but Donald Trump is that worried about protecting himself and making sure that the truth never comes out. Finally, they say Virginia cooperated with the authorities. She endured death threats, threats against the lives of her children and family, financial ruin, and her physical and mental well-being were destroyed. She never backed down. She hoped their strength would inspire other survivors to find the courage to come forward. And there are likely so many survivors out there who I think for very understandable reasons haven't come forward. They've seen what's happened to the women who have accused a lot of these powerful men, especially the women who have accused Donald Trump themselves. And yet I'm sure they are all hoping against hope that there will be justice. And thus far, there doesn't seem like a lot of chance that that is going to happen. And so I want Trump to keep talking because he's potentially digging, if not a grave, because of how unjust our system is, at the very least a deep hole for himself to sink deeper into. And I'm not the only person that is weirded out by how much talking he's doing. Maggie Haberman is someone who has spent a lot of time talking with Donald Trump and certainly a lot of time talking about Donald Trump. And she is especially surprised that Donald Trump just can't stop adding new fascinating and suspicious details of this story. Take a look.
What I'm hearing is fatigue, frankly, on the part of White House officials and people close to the president who are not in the administration, but not just fatigue with Democrats talking about it or podcasters talking about it or Joe Rogan talking about it. The president himself keeps talking about it. As you noted earlier on the show, he answered a question, and maybe he didn't hear the question, about Russia investigation documents earlier today by talking about Jeffrey Epstein. He provided on Air Force One yesterday on his way back from Europe new information that had not been heard before. He has been telling a specific story about a break with Jeffrey Epstein for many, many years, and now he started talking about how Jeffrey Epstein, quote unquote, stole workers who were extremely young women, and at least in one case, from his employ at Mar-a-Lago. So that is helping keep this alive too. I think that he can't find a way to stop talking about it and also doesn't want to keep talking about it. I will say, Caitlin, the word stole is going to land very poorly with a lot of women, and certainly a lot of women who were victims of Jeffrey Epstein. And so I'm not sure how, again, providing new information in his own voice, unsolicited, about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, I don't know how this calms us down.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. I don't know how much he cares about the word stole landing hard with women. I think that any woman in America who has the capability of understanding what Donald Trump is already knows what Donald Trump is. I think the rest, they've made it this far. I think it's gonna take more than word choice to get through to them. I don't know, electric shock therapy perhaps, but I do agree about how all of those survivors out there, I mean, not just, at least, it's not the word, it's the entire thing, how utterly gross this is. And especially, like, I don't know the politics of any of the survivors, how could I possibly? But at least, like, them seeing how much passion there has been out there for justice, for the truth to come out, and then seeing so many of those who like generated audiences and money, like pretending that they cared about the survivors, now they're in power, they don't care anymore. That has got to be heartbreaking for these women. That, like, I thought I had some champions. I thought maybe I don't agree with them on a lot of stuff, but they did seem to care about Epstein or whatever. No, it was a way to get somebody to subscribe to their podcast or buy their, Limp D pills or whatever. It was just that. It was just money and influence and all that. Utterly grotesque. Now, really fast, I will just let you know, Chuck Schumer, Senate Democrats are using something known as the Rule of Five to try to force the Justice Department to release more documents related to the Epstein case, which I will remind everyone out there, they could just release them right now if they wanted to. They don't seem to want to. I wonder why that is. In any event, that law allows any 5 members of the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee to request federal agencies to provide information about any matter within the jurisdiction of the committee. The issue with that is just a law, and this is America in 2025. So I don't see how that's possibly gonna help. The DOJ is Donald Trump's personal law firm. They're not gonna comply with it, okay? Very clever, Chuck Schumer, using the law or whatever, but you've forgotten what year it is and what system we work within.